Working.
Hey, welcome to another episode of The Drive Home. And we're not really driving again.
No, we did drive home though this time, and we had a special guest in the car, Miss Kimberly.
If she's listening, hi Kim.
Hi. But yeah, we decided to come home instead because myself had to go to the grocery store. But that's a moot point. We're actually talking about, we just went to go see 5-Year Engagement with Jason Segel and the lovely Miss Emily Blunt.
Yes, and before we say anything, both those actors were absolutely perfect in the role that they were playing. I thought it was cast really well, for sure.
I agree. I think they really made the movie more. If it would have been different actors, probably would not have been as likable.
Yeah, for sure. So, and I think actually, I was looking at the credits. It looks like Jason Segel co-wrote it and was one of the producers.
Who the director was. With whoever
the director was, whatever his name was.
I should do that before we do a podcast. And then Judd Apatow was also an executive producer for the movie, which you can see certain parts were
his
definitely...
little touch.
Yeah, and they've worked together since Freaks and Geeks, so it's a good...
Which it totally makes sense. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the movie. If you haven't heard about it, it's basically about a couple who, they get engaged, and they keep having to extend their engagement. They keep having to put off the wedding because, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. So, and it just sort of, talks about their lives, that doesn't talk. It basically just shows their lives as they go through this 5-year engagement period.
At least for me going into it, I thought it'd be a little bit more comedic, but it was very real. Yeah. It was definitely problems that do arise in relationships, and I think, not exactly spoiler, but they're both very ambitious people with their jobs, and it's kind of, who gets to do the job, because Emily Blunt early on in the movie, she wants to go into sociology.
Yeah, she wants to be a professor, so that's...
So she's applying for schools and for certain programs that'll get her onto that track. And then Jason Segel's character is a chef, and they're both at the brink where big changes are going to happen.
Yeah, they're right at the point in their careers where their careers are going to start to take off. And, they're right at that precipice, and it's just sort of a matter, and, right now in their relationship, when they get engaged, they're at an equilibrium. They're at a good, halfway point. But then she gets offered a job. And
right before he does.
Right before he does. And so they have to make a decision about how their relationship is going to progress. And that's one of the things that we were talking about, exiting this movie, is that it was a very honest movie when it comes to relationships. Very much like the breakup, but I think a lot softer than the breakup, because the breakup was specifically, about how, this couple just completely drifts apart, and it makes it uncomfortable for other people. It was uncomfortable to watch. This had its hard moments to watch when their relationships were at a low. But for the most part, I think, I think it was just, the casting. They were, because they were cast so well.
Yeah, you root for both of them because they're such lovable people. And I really like the fact that Emily Blunt got to... there's very few roles, I feel like, recently where she's really brought in, her accent and the whole, English culture for it, and that was very cool. I mean, she did a little bit of it, I guess, in Devil Wears Prada. She kind of had the accent that way, but I feel like
come to think of it, she was in the Muppets, too! She had a very, very brief cameo in the Muppets, now that I think about it. She was
right,
she was Miss Piggy's secretary.
Like Devil Wears Prada. So this isn't the first time these two have worked together. What if they filmed, which one they filmed before?
I'm not sure. Oh, goodness. Everything comes back to the Muppets with the fantasy. Why does it always come back to the Muppets? It does,
because that's where we started. If you haven't seen that one, you should watch it. Jason Segel's in there.
And so is Emily Blunt, apparently.
Yeah. She wasn't at the premiere, though. Oh, that's too bad. But the movie, I really liked it. You could totally see Jason Segel's stamp on it, too. The fact that... So they meet at a costume party, and he's dressed in a giant bunny suit.
Super bunny.
And that's put on there in tape.
And
which is
yeah,
great.
I think that's part of why the movie did have this sort of charm to it, and why I personally like it better than The Breakup is because it does have that Jason Segel
He's just so adorable.
flavor to it, I guess.
It's the Marshall. It is
It's
a
the
little-
Marshall factor.
It is the Marshall factor. He brings that in, although it's in a lot of his movies.
That's true.
I haven't seen Jeff Who Lives at Home,
Mhm.
which I kind of want to because I think that's a slight departure from a Marshall character. And I know he was talking about it in a interview once where he wanted to just play like some psycho killer.
It's true. I think he's good. I don't want to say he's in a rut, but he's getting, he's, I don't want to say, again, I don't want to say he's falling into a rut, but he's getting into a routine that a lot of actors get into in where they play the same role over and over again. And I think he does that a little bit. And again, not that that's bad. Like
No, and it's not overdoing it either.
And it's not that he's doing bad movies. I mean, I love The Muppets, and I love, How I Met Your Mother. I love a lot of the things that he's in. But yeah, it would be really funny to see him just pull out a psycho killer character all of a sudden. It'd be like Robin Williams in 1 Hour Photo. That would be so
really
creepy.
Well, they even make fun of it at one point when they see each other at the costume party, and Emily Blunt's sister's, standing there. Emily Blunt's dressed as Princess Diana, and they're talking, and she kind of sees, like, is the guy in the bunny suit cute? And she goes, no, he looks like a killer.
And actually, it's kind of funny. The girl who played her sister, she plays Annie in Community, and so it was just so funny to see her put on this British accent and
she was really good.
And I think that was a great thing about this movie too, is that the side characters were, even though they weren't like. They were definitely quirky, and you look at them and go, like, these people are kind of messed up. Like, when they're together, it worked so well. They were very, very funny.
Because you always have to have the best friends, and in romantic comedies, as this one was. And they did follow formula to an extent, because then there's also, the older man that kind of, vies for Emily Blunt, who happens to be the lizard in Spider-Man. It took me a minute. I'm, like, sitting there watching. I go, is that Dr. Connors?
I honestly...
Stay away, Emily Blunt, stay away.
I was trying to picture who that was, and it wasn't until you said it on the way home that I was like, oh my god, that's totally Kurt Connors. And so we were sitting here making jokes about it, like, oh, it's his experience in the movie that turns him to evil. He gets in a horrible accident afterwards, loses his arm, and then he just decides to start anew in New York, and it's his depression over what happens in this movie that drives him to this experiment. So yeah.
Yeah, I was watching like, watch out for that. And then there were a lot of really good side character cameos. I mean, I love that Molly Shannon was there randomly.
Yeah, and Chris Parnell in his weird knitted sweater.
And I like Mindy Kaling, I guess, I don't know if I'm saying that right, from The Office.
Mm-hmm.
Her role.
She's always very, very cute in these movies. And
she's funny. She's a great writer, too. Mm-hmm. She writes for The Office.
I think, she's in the same crew that does a lot of these movies, because she was in 40-Year-Old Virgin.
And the guy that's in the store that's like, the older Indian gentleman in 40-Year-Old Virgin was also in this movie.
So yeah, there's definitely some familiar faces in here, and there's also freaking Brian Posehn. I will never forget his name because Tyler wrote his name down in a trivia game once, and I was trying. Do you remember when we were at Corey's party?
Which one was he?
Brian Posehn. He was the guy that worked with Jason Segel's character in the restaurant.
The one that
in the sandwich place, yes.
Oh, yes.
The guy with the beard and the glasses.
I like him. He's a character actor and everything. I used to watch him on Veronica's Closet back in the day. And yes, I admitted I watched Veronica's Closet on here.
What on earth is Veronica's Closet?
Kirstie Alley sitcom.
I've never heard of it.
With Kevin and Jimmy?
No, I've never heard of it. What is the show?
That's why I'm kind of embarrassed to say it. Although I enjoyed it. Oh God,
I was gonna say, if I rattled off all the series that I have or that I've watched, that I've enjoyed, I would not want it on a recording.
I
don't have room to judge. I don't have room to judge anyone for liking anything anymore.
There were some great side characters, and I liked the fact all of them were very real. And there was a conversation at the end where they were doing it in Cookie Monster and Elmo voices.
And actually, yeah, that was
such
a good conversation. And, you know, the fact that they were doing it. Yeah, it was, and yeah, that's something, I think we've said this a million times already, but it's a very honest movie. Mm-hmm. And I think that's good for, you know, for a market saturated with romantic comedies that always work out perfectly in the end, you know, despite, you know, one character lying and, you know, misunderstandings and shenanigans and slapstick comedy, you know, in the end.
And there was some of that, too.
Yeah, there's
definitely some funny shenanigans.
Yeah, this is definitely,
people get hurt, you know.
This is definitely a romantic comedy drama, but this is one that's far more grounded in reality. Than a lot of the romantic comedies out there. Because a lot of the romantic comedies, everything just magically works out well in the end. And this one doesn't leave you with that. This one leaves you with, like, relationships. Doesn't matter if you're married or not, they're gonna have their ups and downs. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't.
And I know for me, towards the end, too, they definitely kept me thinking because of how real they were keeping it. I wasn't sure if they'd get together or not. You know... And I'm not going to say whether or not they do at this moment.
Spoilers!
So it does. It has you at the end where you go, you know,
are they going to get together?
Maybe they don't. And maybe that's better if they don't. Mm-hmm. Because they both have such separate dreams and so driven by that.
And
maybe they shouldn't.
That's something that, you know, movies these days really should explore more because, you know, life today is different than it was back then. It wasn't, you know, back in the day, you know, it's not like both people had careers, or very rarely did they have both careers. And so the fact that, you know, today you can have two people who want to live in different parts of the countries because that's where they pursue their careers, you know, that's a very real thing. And, you know, you don't have a whole lot of movies about that where, you know, again, when they bring it up in a romantic comedy, it always ends up working out perfectly. And here they show that you know, it doesn't always.
Well, they showed, you know, this isn't really a spoiler because it happens so early on, but when she gets the job, they move to Michigan, and he leaves everything behind for her. And... you know, like, I really love the first scene of him in Michigan because he's wiping snow off of his car, and it just reminded me of Chicago. I grew, you know, born and raised in Chicago,
and
now I'm in California, and I can't imagine going back there for somebody because it would be tough if you love someone and. It's a horrible thought, like watching that, and then you have to wipe that
It's almost like you can hear the horror movie violin.
I'm like, I felt for him in that moment, because for me, if I met, you know, if I had to give something up for somebody I was getting married to like that, watching him scrape it off the car.
It's so funny because
so depressing.
I grew up in the desert, and so they moved to a place where there's snow, and at first I'm like, Winter Wonderland! And then he jumps onto a fire hydrant.
No, it was funny. I mean, they end up in this not exciting town, and they're from San Francisco.
And it's actually kind of funny, just talking about the comedy a little bit. It's a rated R romantic comedy, and I was really expecting it to be a lot more raunchy and had to have a lot more sexual humor in it. And it really, it had that to an extent, but it really kept it to a minimum.
I was surprised.
And yeah, that was something that was really surprising. But
I was disappointed. Jason Segel, I saw you in Sarah Marshall. I was expecting more of that.
Personally, I didn't think that worked to the movie's disadvantage. It was surprising, and I liked that it focused more on, like, the people as opposed to slapstick scenario. And I liked that personally, but it was something that's surprising. I know that's not everybody's cup of tea, but...
Well, and I also thought, I like Emily Blunt, but I like Jason Segel more.
He's just adorable.
I felt it focused more on her than on him. I felt she was about 60% and he was 40. Which I guess is kind of a description of the relationship too.
Yeah, because she was taking more. And I guess that, that
if you hear anything, I'm cooking. So it's not the drive home today, it's cooking at home.
Why are we always having food?
I'm always hungry after you eat, and before and during.
But
I'm like a college kid having ramen noodles. So.
Oh, that actually smells delicious. Anyway, back to the movie. It was a little on the long side. It did drag a little bit towards the end, or towards the middle when things started to go wrong and they kept having to. They started having problems a little bit more. It started to drag at that point.
I completely agree. I think that was something even Kim had said with us as well, because we all kind of thought it did drag a bit.
Yeah, it ran just a teensy bit long. And I feel like if they had taken out maybe 15 minutes of the movie, it probably wouldn't have felt like it dragged as much.
Yeah, and I think it was the middle stuff. I think you needed everything at the beginning. You needed them falling apart, but maybe have them fall apart slightly fast.
Well, the thing is that, granted it did run a little long, but it is covering a 5-year period, and you do have to keep that in mind. And so if they cover it too quickly, you're like, this isn't 5 years. That, like, we're gonna do a montage of their relationship.
Nope, I'm just gonna spill this all over.
It's not the same without Mia Jovovich.
And if you don't know what we're talking about, you should look at our WonderCon episode.
Oh my gosh, she was so adorable at WonderCon. We have to go back. Actually, I can't wait till Comic-Con, actually. I'm really excited for all that.
For that, too. Should we spoiler?
Should we spoiler alert? Well, we are running on 17 minutes. That's a little longer than
Let's not. Go see the movie if you want.
Go see the movie.
Overall, how would you rate it? How would you recommend it?
I'd probably give it about a 6 out of 10, in all honesty. I'm glad I watched it. I had fun. Don't think I'll be buying it. But again, it was a good movie, especially for people around our age, 20s and 30s who are dealing with this in their relationships right now.
My thoughts about, I think older to kind of see.
Yeah, older people who are married, who've had their ups and downs in relationships, they'll be able to identify with it because, they've lived through it. And people our age who are kind of still in the beginning, in the beginning of the movie, where it's like when we have relationships, they're in that honeymoon stage that they're in when they first get engaged. It's good for us to see because it's a good reminder that, things aren't always perfect in a relationship, no matter how hard you try and how much you love each other.
Yeah.
So it's good for everybody to see, It's one of those things. What about you? How would you rate it?
I'm gonna grade it in terms of her being a teacher. So I would give it a
Professor Schultz.
Professor Schultz coming to class, and that was a really bad British accent. I would give it probably a B. I liked it. I won't buy it. I'm really glad I saw it. It definitely is more of a thinker. I think both of us too. It has depressing moments. It's uplifting, but it is serious. And going out of that, you're go out and you're like, woo! Yeah, it's a very bittersweet movie.
It's not like.
And I love Jason Segel, and I liked Emily Blunt quite a lot in here. More than I have in most movies.
I agree. But I think it was the same thing when you were debating whether or not you wanted to buy Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Mm-hmm. It's when I'm at home on a Saturday night, am I gonna want to pop in? Yeah, 5-year engagement. It's a 5-year engagement kind of night.
Yeah, probably not. I think, what did I say in the car? I said if somebody had it on, I'd watch it. I'm not going to turn it off. Again, I'm glad I saw it. I think it's definitely a very good one. Just be prepared that it's a bit more mellow and more serious than you think. Again, that's not to say there's not funny parts, because there isn't. I'm not taking that away from it, because there are some definite laugh out loud.
They're definitely. I mean, again, it's very real. Like, and that's what life is. It's ups and downs. It's laughter and heartbreak. So yeah.
And Jason Segel's adorable.
So yeah, if you like Jason Segel, you'll probably like the movie. So anyway, I think that's all we have to say. Yeah.
So thanks for tuning in. The Drive Home 5-year engagement, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.